Beyond Reason Radio.
Oh, it is good to be back for another edition of Beyond Reason Radio. You've missed your voice of reason. Actually, you really haven't missed me because I've been filling in for Bud in the morning. I do PM Orlando. I'm doing all kinds of stuff these days. So I don't know if you missed my voice, but it's those shows just aren't quite the same. They're just not like Beyond Reason Radio. This is my baby, this show. This is where I really get to give my opinion, really get to give you a deep analysis of what happened in the week's news. And yes, Tom Benton's here as well, yes.
So that means you ignore the corporate talking points in the show?
You don't. See, Tom Benton knows that there are people out there that believe that iHeartMedia tells me or Bud or you what to say. There are some people that out there that believe that Mitt Romney tells us what to, because Mitt Romney ran Bain Capital at one point.
He founded it, sure.
Bain Capital bought out Clear Channel years ago. I don't even think they're still involved with iHeartMedia anymore. But because of these connections, there are people that tell me, "Why do you defend it? You're running the Romney media. Romney's telling you what to," no. No, Romney really doesn't care what I have to say. And then I've even had people, Tom.
And we don't care what Romney says.
Exactly right. We've criticized Romney a number of times. And there are people, seriously, that have followed me on Twitter, Tom Benson, that have suggested that the CIA tells me and Bud what to say.
Oh, that explains that implant in the back of your head.
Is that what that bump is? I was like, what is it? What is this thing in the back of my head? It kind of itches. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like, I'm not kidding. I've had people on Twitter say, because I'm not a 9/11 truther, that means that the CIA, we have meetings with them, in these boardrooms, and they tell us what to say. It makes me laugh because it's like the Wizard of Oz, really, radio. People think that there's this huge production like in the Wizard of Oz, and then you pull back the curtain and it's just one guy pushing a bunch of buttons. That's pretty much what the radio is.
His name is Jim Poling.
No, it's when it comes to running my show, it's basically just me and you just doing what's going on.
Don't spoil the illusion.
Yeah, so it's the opposite. If you think there's some kind of deep conspiracy in radio and they're telling us what to say, it's the direct opposite.
We don't have that much intelligence.
It's extremely chaotic. But welcome to the show anyway. By the way, I'm filling in for Carl Jackson today. Carl Jackson had somewhat of a family emergency, but he will be back next week, 7 to 9 p.m. He's usually on Friday night, 7 to 9 p.m., but I'm filling in. He let me do Beyond Reason, and I thank him for that. So, first off, Tom Benson, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I've seen enough of you today, so let's get this over with.
Right. I was like, poor Tom. He had to produce this morning because I filled in the morning show, and then I did PM Orlando earlier, which you produced, and now you're here. And I was like, why am I choosing to do this today? What is the payoff here? But I love doing Beyond Reason. There was a time, Tom, when you and I used to do it 3 nights a week.
Oh yeah,
2 hours. Back in the day. So it's good to be back. I know you're going to be in there watching the Yankees during the show anyway.
Well, they only let us do the show when it's dark, and now that the hours are getting shorter,
yeah, exactly.
We're back in the dark again. Have you noticed that? We're not ready for prime time.
Anytime I do this show when it's light outside, I'm like, something's weird. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So I want to start off with something, and I'm actually curious what you think about this, Tom Benson.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed a trend with a lot of conservatives in the media that the reason why they think the Democrats are trying to impeach Trump is they know that the Democrats in the party right now that are running for president cannot beat him.
That's
the
thinking, yes.
And they think this is the only way that Trump can be beat is to impeach him and throw him out of office, because otherwise Trump will win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, I think I don't buy this.
No.
I don't buy this argument. I'm actually really, really worried about this argument. Now, I do think, I think it's likely that Trump will win for a lot of different reasons. The economy's still pretty good, incumbency's good, and the Democrats do have a lot of issues. They're pretty crazy.
The only way he won't is if he shoots himself in the foot, and he's pretty good at that.
Yeah, he's definitely his own worst enemy. There's no doubt about that. He's definitely his own worst enemy. But that being said, sorry, my Facebook Live video just shut down.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
I'm gonna try to put that back up here real quick. But there's a trend in conservative media that the reason why the impeachment is going on is because that's the only way they can beat Trump.
Correct.
And I agree that the impeachment push is partisan. I agree it's an attempt to hurt Trump politically and try to put doubt in people's minds. I'm still not 100% convinced that they're actually going to go through with it, believe it or not. I hear a lot of people out there, it's going to happen. Nancy Lynn started. I'm not so sure, to be honest, because I don't think they have enough. I really don't. I don't think they have enough. I think this is going to be like the Mueller report, where it's stretched out for months. And it's just one of these things that's going to go on forever, and it's going to try to damage Trump. And all of this is to damage him before the election. That's my thinking. I'm not convinced that the Democrat Party is so worried that Trump's going to win that they have to throw him out of office before. I think, and this is going to be unpopular with people listening to me right now, while I think it's very likely that Trump's going to win re-election, I also believe that Trump is beatable. I think Trump is very beatable. And I worry about our side because I think we're becoming, some on our side are becoming arrogant on this. Mm-hmm. That Trump is basically invincible, unstoppable, gonna win in a landslide. The Democrats have absolutely no chance. The only thing they can do is impeach him. And the Democrats are so weak and yada, yada, yada. And frankly, I don't buy it. I don't really see the evidence of that.
Who is the candidate that you think can do this?
Oh, that can beat Trump?
Yeah.
Ooh, it's a good question. It's not. It's hard. In the next segment.
Don't say Buttigieg and O'Rourke.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Buttigieg is pretty charismatic. He reminds me a lot of Obama in a way. Buttigieg, I might get more into this later. Buttigieg, what he does is he acts like he's the uniter and the moderate one, and then he will hit you below the belt really hard in a soft way. You don't realize he's doing it, but he'll smack you right below the belt. He'll go low and act like he's going high. And so I think a lot of those candidates, I think the reason why we have so many candidates is because they know Trump can be beaten. The reason why we had so many Republican candidates in the last election in 2016 was because they knew that Hillary was beatable. They knew that they could win. And I think a lot of the Republican candidates could have beaten Hillary. I think Rubio could have beaten Hillary. I think Ted Cruz could have beaten Hillary. I'm not sure about Jeb Bush. I don't know if he could have beaten it. He had the Bush name. But I think a lot of those candidates had a really good shot at beating Hillary. A lot of people think only Trump could have done it. I don't buy that. And I think this is the case now where a lot of the Democrats think, we can beat Trump. I don't see a lot of evidence that Trump is invincible. I think it's likely he'll win, but that doesn't mean he's invincible. There are arguments being made by some on the Democrat side, including Elizabeth Warren, that us on the right immediately discount because we know the truth. We know the fallacies of their arguments and all of that stuff. So we discount their arguments. But we have to remember that in a general election, there are a lot of people that vote that are pretty ignorant about some of this stuff. I mean, frankly.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that the Democrats could possibly beat Trump. And I'm only saying this because we can't be arrogant on this. Trump did not win the popular vote. people keep saying the polls were wrong. The polls were wrong. How could you believe any of the polls? The national polls were pretty close to being right, actually, because the national polls went, that's basically a popular vote poll. When you looked at the national polls in 2016, Hillary won the popular vote by almost as much as the national polls said. So you can't look at the national polls and say, oh, well, they were just wrong. They actually weren't. So Trump did not win in some kind of major landslide in the last election. He won in a very close election where really just a few 100,000 votes made all of the difference. And that can happen again. And the reason I'm pointing this out is there are arguments we need to make against the other side when it comes to economics, when it comes to social policies, when it comes to things that they are saying in the debate that we're kind of discounting now, that we really need to do a better job of arguing against. Because it could be effective in the long run, and there's a possibility that Trump could lose. It's just something I've noticed out in a lot of conservative media that they're basically assuming that Trump is unstoppable. And I worry that they're wrong. I worry that we are becoming way too arrogant in this fight. Now, there was something that came up in the Democrat debate. We're going to go over a few things in the Democrat debate. But there was something that Elizabeth Warren said that was completely wrong, but might be an effective argument for a lot of people. And we need to fight back against it and do a better job of fighting back against it. So we're going to do that next right here on Beyond Reason Radio. A lot of stuff to get to. I'm going to play a voice of reason later on. Bill Barr had a great speech on the dangers of losing faith in our country and the dangers of eroding religious freedom. We're going to get to that later in the show. A lot to get to here on Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
It is Beyond Reason that I'm back now because I feel like I've been on the radio all day, but this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. If you ever miss any of the show, make sure to subscribe to the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. One of the best ways you can get it is on the iHeartRadio app. Just download the iHeartRadio app, search Beyond Reason Radio, and you can always find the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page as well, and we're on Facebook Live right now. We're on until 9 p.m. tonight on News Radio WFLA Orlando because I'm filling in for Carl Jackson, who couldn't make it on tonight, wanted me to do my show instead, but he will be back next week, so Tom Benson won't have to spend too much time with me next Friday. So that's good news for him. So in the last segment, I was talking about the fact that I worry that we're becoming arrogant in thinking that Trump is basically unbeatable, invincible, that the Democrats are so weak and so wrong that there's no way they could win. And in some ways, I understand it. I actually tweeted out, not this past debate, but the debate before that, I tweeted out, every time Trump tweets, I think Trump's going to lose. And then every time I watch a Democrat debate, I think Trump's going to win because that's how I feel sometimes. Yeah. But I just notice a trend that because the impeachment stuff's going on, this is the Democrats being so desperate that they're going to try to kick him out of office before the next election. I've never bought that because, one, I'm not sure they're actually going to go through with it because I don't think they have enough. But two, I mean, the Senate is not going to convict him, so he's not going to be thrown out of office. There's definitely not enough there now for the Senate to convict him. So I think there's going to be another election. Now, it seems that Trump has a pretty good chance of winning. Don't get me wrong, he's likely to win. But the Democrats still have a chance. Let's not fool ourselves. I think a lot of us are fooling ourselves when we're in our own little bubble in Trump world. But, there was something that I noticed in the last debate, and I've noticed in the previous debates before. The Democrats pushing different lines, but there was something Elizabeth Warren said, and she's the front runner now in the debate. And I think she could be the nominee. I mean, Biden really should have been the nominee, but he can't put a sentence together. You know, some people are saying that it's the Hunter thing that's really hurting him, the corruption in Ukraine and all. That's why he's not winning as much. No, I don't think so. I don't think the Democrats care about that. I think the reason why he can't seem to gain ground is because he can't finish sentences. He keeps losing his train of thought, throwing in stuff that doesn't really make any sense. It's so obvious. It was hard to watch. You kind of feel sorry for the guy. It was kind of hard to watch in the last debate, honestly. But Tom Benson doesn't feel sorry for him.
No, I don't.
But so Elizabeth Warren's the front runner right now. And by the way, that's at a Yaffee I told you so months ago when nobody thought Elizabeth Warren had a chance. I said, I think she's going to do better because once she gets on the debate stage and once she gets out there, she's going to sound like she knows what she's talking about. And that's what happened. She sounds like she knows what she's talking about. She has all these different plans. Now, she was challenged on it more in this recent debate. But there's one thing that she said here. I'll get to the cut now. It took me forever to get to it. That I want to pay attention to because it's very, very wrong, but could be an effective argument for their side. It's when she said this.
So I'm really shocked at the notion that anyone thinks I'm punitive. Look, I don't have a beef with billionaires. My problem is you made a fortune in America. You had a great idea. You got out there and worked for it. Good for you. But you built that fortune in America, I guarantee you built it in part using workers all of us help pay to educate. You built it in part getting your goods to market on roads and bridges all of us help pay for. You built it at least in part protected by police and firefighters all of us help pay the salaries for.
So her argument there is actually very similar to an argument Obama made that we on the right used against him, but a lot of people thought was a good argument. It's when Obama, when he was president, and said this. Did it freeze or something? It's coming, Tom Benson. He was watching.
If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we have that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
You see what he said there? That's very similar to what Warren said. So Bernie Sanders is basically out there just bashing billionaires, saying basically they shouldn't even exist. We shouldn't have millionaires. It's okay because, you know,
he's one.
He's one.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Everyone on that stage is one. But the billionaires basically shouldn't exist. They're taking all the wealth. We need to redistribute that wealth, yada, yada, yada. Elizabeth Warren took a little bit of a different tact there. And when she gets in a general election, it might be a pretty effective argument if we don't combat it right. She's basically saying, look, I don't have a problem with billionaires. It's just billionaires had help and they need to spread the wealth around a little bit. They need to acknowledge and give back what society has given them. This is what we hear all the time. So the way we do that, of course, in Elizabeth Warren's world is through government action. That's the best way we do it. We have to tax them more because society has helped them, and we need to take away some of that and give it back to society. And there's some people that are actually going to be like, you know, I think teachers should get paid more, firefighters should get paid more, we need more roads and bridges. I love that. I don't know why Democrats are obsessed with roads and bridges, but they always talk about roads and bridges. It's like the one thing they have. Here's the problem with what Elizabeth Warren is talking about and what Bernie Sanders constantly talks about. You can't have an effective, you can't pay the firefighters, you can't pay the teachers, you can't build the infrastructure if you do not have a thriving economy. In order to help all these things get funded on the local level, that yes, our society needs some of these things, you have to have creation of wealth through a thriving capitalist economy. It is true that there are systems in place that businesses have used to help better themselves, but it's also true that a lot of those systems exist because businesses in the past and now have invented new things and expanded wealth in such a way that we can create a better society. We all use tools at our disposal to help build our businesses. So when you're talking about getting rid of billionaires or taxing billionaires, everyone should pay taxes. I'm not against taxes necessarily. But what she is talking about could ruin incentive and destroy economic growth. And anytime you do that, the argument to do that, the argument for redistribution of wealth in the history of man is always that they're taking the rich or taking from the poor, and if you redistribute it, everything goes well. And the history shows that it never goes well because there's not enough money to go around usually because you're destroying economic wealth. It's the old adage, a rising tide lifts all boats. Here in Florida is a great example. Governor Ron DeSantis, and here in Florida, is proposing to give teachers a pay raise. The only reason he can get away with that at all is because Florida's economy is booming. If Florida's economy wasn't booming, he would not be able to sell that at all. But it's booming because of low taxes. That's the problem that Elizabeth Warren doesn't seem to understand. That the government, it's not that the wealth was just there and the billionaires are taking more of it. It's that a lot of these billionaires help create even more wealth, and now that helps our society as a whole. Now, one plan that they have is a wealth tax. Bernie and Elizabeth Warren want to do that. We're going to talk about that next and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
So, you know what's really beyond reason? Just thinking about the last Democrat debate and really thinking about Bernie Sanders. Now, it's not likely he's going to win the nomination, mostly because of his health and his age. But the fact that he's even on the stage, it kind of amazes me. Because over and over again, when you listen to Bernie Sanders, he's really the honest one, but everything he talks about is capitalism is bad, which of course is beyond reason. Democrats historically weren't against, capitalism, at least they weren't open about it. Like Bernie Sanders, they would still kind of acknowledge it, but he basically blamed the opioid crisis on capitalism. We're destroying the planet because of capitalism, and so on and so forth. And people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they don't believe in the power of the individual, and they really don't believe in the power of freedom. They believe in the power of reorganizing society with more government control. That's what they want to do. They want to restructure society. It isn't really about helping the firefighters and the teachers and all of that. It's much beyond that. It's restructuring how our economy actually works because they believe, it's not working, and if I could just manage it, if I was just in charge and can manage it, it would be so much better, which is arrogant, of course, and never works. But, one thing that they're proposing, at least Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, is what they're calling a wealth tax. In fact, here is Warren talking about that during the debate.
Taxing income is not going to get you where you need to be the way taxing wealth does. We need a wealth tax in order to make investments in the next generation.
I love how they throw that word need around. It's like a child, when you have a little kid, I need chocolate ice cream. You're using that word a little too loosely. Do we need a wealth tax? No. You want it because you want to push your government programs. That the only way to invest in our future is, of course, through government. That's how they look at it. Now, Bernie Sanders also talked about this. Here he is.
When you have 500,000 Americans sleeping out on the street today, and then you also have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. That is a moral and economic outrage. So if you're asking me, do I think we should demand that the wealthy start paying the wealthiest, top 0.1%, start paying their fair share of taxes? Yes, that's exactly what I believe.
You know what he's saying? He wants everybody sleeping on the streets.
Yeah, exactly. He wants everyone equally miserable. You know, he talked about 500,000 people sleeping on the streets. I mean, he's a millionaire now. He could give out some money to those people on the streets.
I'm sure he's got some spare rooms.
You know, I don't think he's paying his fair share. He's got this big house. He doesn't need that.
He's got 3 houses.
Yeah, he doesn't need that. Why doesn't he? It's funny how it doesn't apply to them. But you see what their whole point is. And the whole problem I have with this is, once again, they assume, like, they look at Jeff Bezos. He's the richest person in the world right now. Makes what is it, like he's worth $100 billion or something like that?
Let's put it this way. He could lose $50 billion and still be a billionaire.
Exactly right. And they say how nobody should be that rich. He is that rich off the backs of his workers. That theme was all through that debate. But what they never talk about is how much wealth and prosperity Amazon has contributed to our society. What Jeff Bezos is worth is minuscule compared to how much wealth that man has created through his company. But they never look at it like that because they always think there's just so much wealth and he's just taking more of it. No. He has created so much wealth and prosperity in this country in the past 10 years, it's almost hard to measure. You're talking trillions of dollars that has helped our whole society. So yes, he's worth a lot of money, but it doesn't compare to how much wealth he's actually created. And do you want to stop the creation of that wealth? I guess they do, because they believe the only one who should be able to do it is government, which of course never works out. Now, one person who actually took them to task on this, believe it or not, was Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang actually had a pretty decent debate. I'll give him credit. I disagree with him on a lot of things, but I give him credit. He did a good job performance-wise. And he was actually right on the problems of the wealth tax. He said this.
Senator Warren is 100% right that we're in the midst of the most extreme winner-take-all economy in history. And a wealth tax makes a lot of sense in principle. The problem is that it's been tried in Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden, and all those countries ended up repealing it because it had massive implementation problems and did not generate the revenue that they'd projected. If we can't learn from the failed experiences of other countries, what can we learn from? We should not be looking to other countries' mistakes. Instead, we should look at what Germany, France, Denmark, and Sweden still have, which is a value-added tax. If we give the American people a tiny slice of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every robot truck mile, every Facebook ad, we can generate hundreds of billions of dollars and then put it into our hands because we know best how to use it.
So he's right about the value-added tax, or not the value-added. I don't care about that. He's right about the wealth tax part, that these other countries tried it, and it didn't work out so well. And the reason why it didn't work out so well is because it's incredibly difficult to measure and enforce, and you don't get as much revenue. It's everything he said, because when you're taxing wealth, I mean, what does that include? You know, I'm not a rich person, but if you're going to tax wealth, are you going to tax my TV, my drum set, my appliances? I mean, technically, that's all part of your wealth. Some of this stuff is really difficult to measure, and it's
part of your net worth.
Yeah. And you're basically taxing them twice. So they were already taxed when they bought it, but they want to tax them again for merely having it. But even Andrew Yang is wrong on the whole premise. He said, we live in the worst winner-take-all economy in history. No, that's not true at all. In fact, we're all winning in a capitalist economy in some way when entrepreneurs build businesses and products and services that end up helping us all and creating more wealth for us all, that we can all live in a more prosperous society. You want to talk about winner-take-all societies? Talk about socialist dictatorships. Look at Venezuela. You want to talk about a winner-take-all society? Let's not look at, America's the worst winner-take-all society. No, I think Venezuela is probably worse because the government, the cronies in bed with the government are basically the winners taking everything while the people starve. That's a winner-take-all society. You know, Andrew Yang there was saying we need to learn from what other countries are doing. Well, we're not. We should learn from their mistakes. You're exactly right. You know which countries learn from the mistakes of their past? Israel. This is a great piece in the National Review on this, by the way, by Lee Edwards. He said 3 nations that tried socialism and rejected it: Israel, India, and the United Kingdom each lifted itself from economic stagnation by switching to free market policies. That's exactly right. People don't know that Israel was basically founded as a communist socialist nation in the beginning, and it didn't work out as well. And now in the past few decades, they've really turned into a capitalist economy, and they've become a very rich and prosperous society because of it. India is another one that's moving away from socialism, going more capitalist, and they become more prosperous. He says, socialists are fond of saying that socialism has never failed because it has never been tried. But in truth, socialism has failed in every country in which it has been tried, from the Soviet Union beginning a century ago to 3 modern countries that tried but ultimately rejected it: Israel, India, and the United Kingdom. It says, while there were major political differences between Soviets and those countries, all of the latter countries adhere to socialist principles, nationalizing their major industries and placing economic decision-makings in the hands of government, and, of course, failed. Now, Andrew Yang says, well, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to give everyone money, and then you're in control. Not necessarily. Not if you're being taxed more. You're having some money taken away with you. Oh, but then it's given back and all that. I'm going to talk more about the problems with the value-added tax and UBI, Universal Basic Income. And I have a great voice of reason on these economic policies next, and we'll get to that in a moment. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Yes, somehow I am back on the air. I'm a little tired today. It's been a long day, but that's all right. Gotta pay your dues in this business, I guess. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We've been talking about the Beyond Reason Democrat debate. The last debate, although I've been warning people that don't assume that Trump is unbeatable, because there's just no evidence to suggest that. I think it's likely he'll win, but he's not unbeatable. Now, in the last segment, we were talking about the idea of a wealth tax. And, I'm a big picture guy. And forget about, what kind of tax they want, whether it's a value-added tax or a wealth tax or a hiring. I mean, Joe Biden wants to raise the capital gains tax to 39% or something like that. It's just crazy what that would do. What that would do to investment in the country. Whatever tax you're talking about, in the big picture, it all comes from a philosophy that they believe the government is much better at allocating these resources than the private sector. Andrew Yang is saying, well, it's different because I'm just giving everyone $1,000. But you still believe in a way that the government is better at allocating those resources. You're just allocating it in a way that's giving people money. You're still taking the resources from the owner of that resource and giving it to other people. It's still the government allocating those resources in a way. He believes that. I'll talk more about the universal basic income idea in a moment. But I wanted to play a voice of reason, one of the voices of reason today, which we try to do a lot on Beyond Reason Radio. Other than myself, I'm the real voice of reason. Stop laughing in there, Tom Benson. Tom Benson is here producing, by the way. Mike Rowe from the Dirty Jobs fame, but he's always a great voice of reason. He was on Fox and Friends earlier this week because he's promoting a new book. But he was asked about it. It was the day after the debate, and he was asked about, some of the socialist policies that they want to implement. And I think he was exactly right. Here's what he said.
Look, in the end, you've got millionaires arguing with millionaires over who hates the millionaires the most.
Right.
And I guess it's a conversation we'll have, but I remember a couple years ago, I took my my meager staff over to the Reagan Ranch. Mm-hmm. If you haven't been, it's
beautiful.
It's terrific. But one of the stories they tell is the time when Ronald Reagan just finally decided he was done doing movies. He's just done because he was paying 92% of every dollar he made on films. And it was just math. He wasn't done acting. He just looked at it and did some basic calculus and said, not for me anymore. Makes no sense to do this.
So the wealthiest people will just say, I'm not working anymore.
I live in California. I just read a report that said the exodus this year as a result of a 13.5% state tax and some other tweaks to the system is unlike anything they've ever seen before. So I know it's convenient. It's fun to kind of hate the rich and all, but in the end, they're just people, and they're going to do the math, and they're going to go to where the math is better.
Okay, so he made 2 points there that are really good. First, he was talking about Ronald Reagan, and I think he got the story wrong a little bit. What Ronald Reagan used to say is when he was an actor, they would only work so many months out of the year. Because after a certain point on the amount they earned, taxes were so high that basically they would work for 9 months, and if they worked any more, the rest of that money would go to the government. So they wouldn't work anymore. It's not like they're going to keep working and earning more money if it's all going to go to the government. They're just not going to work anymore, not going to earn more money. And the problem with that is you get less revenue in the long run than you would if they were working more. But it's wealth and productivity that's not being created in the economy. You see, he's exactly right. And then eventually people are just going to stop working. Why would they work? Why would they produce when it's all being taken away? You take away the incentive. I mean, this is basic economics I'm talking about right here. This is basically why communism has failed. Now, when it comes to the whole idea of universal basic income, Andrew Yang wants to give everyone $1,000. He responded to that idea as well, and I think he's exactly right. Here's what he said.
Once you say, okay, free money, the next question has to be, why not more? And that's the beef with the $5,000 surge in the middle class right now. How do you argue against that? You simply say it's not big enough.
Right.
Why not 10?
So when he was talking about before that, they were saying that the Trump economy has given the average middle class family $5,000 more in income since Trump's been in office, which is good. But his point there when it comes to universal basic income is exactly right. And it also has to do with the minimum wage and everything else. Once you say, I'm just going to give you money, with you not earning it at all, it's never going to be enough. Why you say, $1,000, and the response is always going to be, well, why just 1,000? Why not more? And of course, they're going to keep adding that more and more and more. Now, one reason they're going to do it is because of inflation. If you're just giving everyone free money without actually adding to the productivity of the economy, it's just going to cause a rise in inflation. Andrew Yang says, no, it's not because the robots will be doing all our jobs. Okay, whatever. You can buy that all you want. It's going to cause inflation. But it's never going to be enough. $1,000 won't be enough. That's not going to give you enough to make a living. So they're going to want more and more. Why not just give everyone, if the whole premise is just to give everyone money, why not just give everyone $1 million and call it a day? If this is what we're going to do. $10,000? Why 1,000? They don't really have a good answer for that. And some people are saying, well, this gives the individual freedom. This will help the economy because people have more spending money. But they're getting the money without earning it. Cory Booker was actually right in part of the debate where he says we have to put the value back into work. His idea was to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which I think is wrong too. But he makes a good point. If you're just giving people money, they're not earning it. They're not adding to the productivity of the economy. It's this idea that, oh, well, increase demand, which will help businesses. That's not the only thing that grows an economy. There's also the other side of it where you have investment in new innovations for future demand. You know, there was a time when the iPhone was not in demand. It took someone investing in the product, inventing it, and making it a demand, but that investment had to come from somewhere. But if you're just giving everyone money and saying that's going to fuel the economy, it's not. You're not adding anything to the productivity and the wealth of the country. It's once again another scheme to redistribute wealth. That's all it is. It's another socialist scheme, just in a different way, where you're redistributing wealth. Now, Milton Friedman was the first one who actually came up with this. His whole point was he would get rid of all the welfare programs and we would only have universal basic income. If you want to do that, that's not necessarily a bad idea. That's not what Andrew Yang is proposing. He's actually said, no, I want this on top of all the other programs that exist. This is a terrible idea. It's just another form of redistribution of wealth. People getting money that they have not earned, they have not contributed to the productivity of the economy, and that doesn't work in the long run. Going to switch gears here in the next hour. Bill Barr, the Attorney General, gave a great speech on the importance of religious freedom and how it's under attack. Get to that in the next hour. One more hour to go on Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Beyond Reason Radio.
And welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We're on until 9 p.m. tonight right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. We're also on Facebook Live as well. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. If you miss any of the show, catch the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. And I'm filling in for Carl Jackson tonight. Carl Jackson had a family emergency, could not be here, asked me to do the show, and I said yes. So there you go. He will be back next week. He usually does his show Friday, 7 to 9 p.m., but could not do it tonight, like I said. But I appreciate him giving me the opportunity to do the show. We just did an hour of the show, and I talked a little bit about the Democrat debate. Well, I talked first about how I'm a little worried that the Republicans are a little too arrogant, thinking that Trump is unbeatable. I don't think that's true. I think Trump will probably win, but I don't think we should be arrogant about it. We also talked about other things in the debate. I want to shift gears a little bit, though, because there's something that happened recently that got some attention, but didn't get a whole lot of attention. And that was a speech made by the Attorney General. And it got more attention from the left because they couldn't believe he would say these things. How could the Attorney General promote religious freedom? No! But first, a lot of people on the left believe, like, say, Ronald Reagan Jr., what he believes. He got some attention recently because he did an ad. The ad's actually a few years ago, a few years old, and he recorded it for the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And this ad actually played during the Democrat debate, and it goes to the point of what the left actually believes when it comes to religious freedom. Here's what he said.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
And I actually you really should be afraid of it. I mean, I'm just saying, you kind of should be afraid of it, but it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be pretty. Basically, I talked about that this morning a little bit, that freedom from religion is not in the Constitution. I hate to burst his bubble, but it's not there. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is an organization where their expressed goal is not free practice of religion in our society. It's not. They are constantly trying to prevent people in our society from being able to practice their religion freely. They want you only to be able to practice your religion behind closed doors. That's what they think our society was founded on, which of course is not true. They're always trying to get in the way of free expression of religion. Now they say, we're just trying to keep the government secular. No, you're going way beyond that. But there's nothing in our Constitution that prevents government people from celebrating religion or faith. It only prevents the establishment of a religion because they wanted people to freely be able to practice their religion where and when they wanted to. But that's not what the Freedom from Religion Foundation believes. And they're a very dangerous organization because they've actually been successful in the past. And Bill Barr talks a little bit about this in a speech that he gave at Notre Dame recently. And he's exactly right. I'm going to play a few cuts here. I got this from the Wall Street Journal, and they had some music in the background. So when he gave the speech, I don't think there was the music. You know, it's not like angels were singing behind him in a chorus or something. They added that later, but it's still a really good speech. And I wanted to play some of the cuts here for you. So here is the Attorney General William Barr.
Secularists and their allies have marshaled all the forces of mass communication, popular culture, the entertainment industry, and academia in an unremitting assault on religion and traditional values. These instruments are used not only to affirmatively promote secular orthodoxy, but also to drown out and silence opposing voices and to attack viciously and hold up to ridicule any dissidents.
He's exactly right there. And you could say that about the Freedom from Religion Foundation. What he said there is that secularists, humanists, mostly atheists and agnostics, they go beyond just trying to promote that in society or government. They try to viciously attack people of faith in many different ways. It's comforting to hear an attorney general actually say something like this because he's exactly right. And he continues on here.
One of the ironies, as some have observed, is that the secular project has itself become a religion pursued with religious fervor. It is taking on all the trappings of religion, including inquisitions and excommunication. Those who defy the creed risk a figurative burning at the stake, social, educational, and professional ostracism, and exclusion waged through lawsuits and savage social media campaigns.
Oh, you see what he did there. Atheists and agnostics hate that when they're called out on this, but he's right. He said the irony is that what they are doing is creating a religion, or they're at least promoting their view, atheists and agnostics, with religious furor. The thing that they say they're speaking out against is exactly what they're doing. They get places in our government, in our social institutions, in our pop culture, and they promote their side with such, dare I say, religious zeal that they basically try to excommunicate real people of faith out of society and out of different places in society. That's the goal. And that is not what this country was founded on, unlike what Ron Reagan Jr. would like to tell you. Now, Bill Barr continues on in his speech here.
We call on the state to mitigate the social costs of personal misconduct and irresponsibility. So the reaction to growing illegitimacy is not sexual responsibility, but abortion. The reaction to drug addiction is safe injection sites. The solution to the breakdown of the family is for the state to set itself up as an ersatz husband for the single mother and an ersatz father for the children. The quote comes from more and more social programs to deal with this wreckage. And while we think we're solving problems, we are underwriting them.
Ooh, what a great line at the end there. While we think we're solving problems, we're underwriting them. While we think we're solving problems, we're underwriting them. What he's saying there is we're creating all of these institutions of social justice in our society to solve these problems of drug addiction, of fatherless households, of whatever it may be, undisciplined kids in schools. But often what we do is actually make the problems worse because we basically legitimize the problem. Instead of promoting religious values and faith and a moral code in our society and punishment if you don't follow a moral code, we basically promote this idea that there is no moral code and that if you fail in life or have problems in life because you don't follow a moral code, well, it's not really your fault and we'll be there to help you. And it just makes these problems worse. We underwrite the problems by expanding government. And of course, because religious institution and faith is being driven from our society, everybody wants to go to the state instead to solve our problems. There's always going to be something to fill that religious vacuum, whether it's drugs, sex, alcohol, or the state to take care of us. Very interesting. Now, he continues on here.
Virtually every measure of social pathology continues to gain ground. In 1965, the illegitimacy rate was 8%. The last time I was Attorney General in 1992, it was at 25%. Today, it is at over 40%, and that's the national average. In many of our large urban areas, as we know, it is well over 70%.
So you talk about the problems right there that we see in our society today that are caused from the lack of faith and a moral code. And how do we solve these problems? Or nowadays, we don't even try to solve the problems. We just accept that as the new normal, and it's okay. It's okay to be an illegitimate marriage, it's not bad to be an illegitimate child, but what I'm saying is we say, well, that's a new good if you don't have a mother and a father in the household. It's not any worse morally. It's just different. Like I said, we underwrite the problems, and it just makes these things worse in our society. This is the Attorney General saying this stuff. This is really great stuff. This is bold stuff that needs to be said more in our society. And, of course, the left freaked out over this. They can't have Bill Barr's trying to create a theocracy, which is absurd. He's just talking about having a moral and religious value-based civil society, which is needed in order for government to be able to work separately. Otherwise, it all falls apart. And which cut am I on? Am I on cut 5 now or cut 4? Am I on cut 5? Yeah, this is the last cut here. Here's more Bill Barr.
Ground zero for these attacks on religion are the schools. And to me, this is the most serious challenge to religious liberty today. For anyone who has a religious faith, by far the most important part of exercising that faith is teaching that religion to your children, the passing on of the faith. There is no greater gift we can give our children and no greater expression of love. And for the government to interfere in that process is a monstrous invasion of religious liberty. We start with an untrammeled freedom, and we end up as dependents of a coercive state on whom we depend.
He's exactly right. And there are movements right now to interrupt families being able, and parents and communities being able to teach religious values in our society to their kids. And that if they teach certain values that are biblical and moral, they're seen as bad parents, and maybe those kids should be taken away from the parents. I know that sounds extreme, But there are some out there who actually believe that if you don't change the sex of your child because their child believes he's transgendered, maybe you shouldn't be a parent. Which is completely absurd, of course. Totally absurd. And he's exactly right. Now, in the next segment, I want to talk a little bit more about how the left responded to this. You want to talk about beyond reason. What they said is definitely beyond reason. My Twitter troll, by the way, one time I said something about this, and he said his response was, "Religion is a disease." That's what they believe. This is a guy who criticizes Trump all the time for things he says, and he says stuff like that. So it's just crazy. We'll talk more about this in the next segment. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. We have a lot more to get to in the show today. I am your voice of reason, but I did play another voice of reason there, and that was the Attorney General, Bill Barr. He was talking about how the secularists, the atheists, the agnostics out there, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, basically what he's talking about, have this religious zeal in themselves trying to attack our religious freedom in this society and how dangerous that is for the future. But not only that, how it damages the civil society, because in order for America to be a prosperous, functioning society, the culture has to have a moral code. And that seems to be taken away more and more because we take away faith, we take away religion. Now, Tom Benson, when you were listening to that, did you think it was because Paul Krugman, you know what he said to this? He said he accused Barr of religious bigotry. Did you notice any religious bigotry in there?
No.
Paul Krugman also described his words as a pogrom-type speech. You know, the pogroms back in the time where they basically rounded up Jews, I guess. He says that's what that kind of. Did you notice any of that?
No.
No, I was about to say I don't remember that in there. I don't know where they're getting that. He was basically just promoting religious freedom and a religious moral value system in our society.
Sure.
Let's see. How else did the left react to this? Political ethicist and professional attention seeker Richard Painter tapped out a series of even more furious tweets calling the speech the latest episode of The Handmaid's Tale. Why do they always use The Handmaid's Tale?
Yes.
It's so dumb. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was there anything... Did he call for us to have women basically be used and raped to bear children for us? Is that what he called for in that speech?
I'm sure he had that thought in his mind.
Is that what The Handmaid's Tale is about?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it said same thing. Also said that Mr. Barr sounded like vintage Goebbels.
What?
Because he wants a religious value system in our society. And what's funny is his whole point, they're just making his point. They're basically, his whole point was that he believes in religious freedom, and if you're someone who's a Christian in our society, you're ostracized immediately by the left, by the agnostic atheist left,
right?
And basically trying to be banished and excommunicated from the public square. And they totally made his point. That's what they're doing to him. They're the ones with the religious zeal. They're the ones who don't believe in the free practice of religion and freedom. They're the ones who want to take it away. Now, here's something else. MSNBC, of course, someone on MSNBC said this. Retired Army Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, once chief of staff to Colin Powell, told Joy Reid. So, man.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
So the Attorney General
let me hold on here.
He said he referenced the Attorney General as a Spanish Inquisition's Grand Inquisitor. Did he call for the rounding up of people who don't believe a certain religious belief to be burned at the stake? Was that in the speech? I don't think so. In fact, he was calling for more free exercise in our society. Was he not? Wasn't he saying the opposite? He actually said they're the ones who are pushing an inquisition, and it seems like they're proving his point. Somebody else, and I should have grabbed the audio, but I didn't, but somebody else said, this is Bill Barr trying to bring us back to a predominantly white national culture when he said that. Did you notice that in the speech? Was he pushing some kind of white racism?
So religion is a white privilege thing, huh? Is that what he's there?
I guess. Yeah. What's amazing to me is some of the most religious people I know are black.
Sure.
And most of the time, they're the ones that are promoting more Christianity in our society. So are they really, those black people are really just white racist, white nationalist racist? What? Well, so this, I mean, it's funny, it's sad, but it's also funny because they all proved his point. I was reading about this in the Wall Street Journal, and it said here, Mr. Barr's argument has been echoed throughout American history. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. John Adams said that. Liberty cannot be established without morality, nor morality without faith. That's what Tocqueville said. In teaching this democratic faith to American children, we need the sustaining, buttressing aid of those great ethical religious teachings which are the heritage of our modern civilization. For not upon strength nor upon power, but upon the Spirit of God shall our democracy be founded. You know who said that? FDR said that.
What?
Did you know that FDR was a white racist?
We do now. We know now.
And Tocqueville and John Adams were actually promoting a Spanish Inquisition. And did you know that FDR was basically Goebbels? Did you? That's what Paul Krugman believes. Poor Tom. I can just tell his stuff drives him crazy. Well, it is beyond reason. I'm just telling you. We're going to talk about something else that came up in the Democratic debate next, and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Got a half an hour to go, Tom Benson. Then you're rid of me. You're rid of me for a couple of days. I just saw
my prayers have been answered.
Big smile. I mean, I know you're watching the Yankee game. You're at least keeping track of the score in there. Are they winning? The Yankees winning?
Yes, 4-0.
Ooh, 4-0.
They have 4-1, I think, but they got to win tonight. So
what inning or is it?
Last I saw was I think third.
Oh, so you still got a while to go there. So, but they got to win. All right.
And the Astros are explosive. So
yes, they are. Okay, enough baseball talk. So I don't even watch baseball. You know why I don't watch? I think I've told this before. You know why I don't really get into baseball?
No, why is that?
Because I was terrible.
Oh,
when I was in elementary school, I loved baseball.
Yeah, but you look like the type that would like hot dogs.
I do like those. Yes,
peanuts.
The peanuts are okay.
All the stuff you can eat at the ballpark watching a game.
I used to go to. Do you remember the Orlando Cubs? Were you here when we had the Orlando Cubs?
No.
Yeah, that was the minor league team. They played at Tinker Field.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like in elementary school, we would go to Orlando Cubs games. And I was totally into baseball.
There you go.
But I tried to play in Little League, and I was terrible. I was awful. And it made me not like baseball so much anymore. I was the worst baseball player ever. I could not hit anything. You could throw a watermelon, and I would have missed it with a baseball bat. It just did not go well. So I'm more into basketball and football.
Okay.
Now, I know the NBA, the communist-loving NBA. But so I wanted to bring up something else that came up during the Democratic debate. This whole push for Medicare for all by the likes of Elizabeth Warren. Now, Elizabeth Warren, she was basically called out for this, but she was asked once again during the debate if you would raise taxes, if they would raise taxes to implement Medicare for all. And she, of course, wouldn't answer the question again. Here's what she said.
So I have made clear what my principles are here, and that is costs will go up for the wealthy and for big corporations, and for hardworking middle-class families, costs will go down.
So she once again wouldn't answer the question. And I don't know why. Just answer the question. I think she's just afraid of the soundbite, because once the soundbite's out there, the Republicans will use that word. But I mean, we all know. We all know what she means. Everybody knows. You're going to have to raise taxes to pay for it. Any kind of Medicare for all plan like she wants or Bernie Sanders wants, it's going to cost a lot of money. You're going to have to pay taxes on it. Just own up to it. I mean, Bernie Sanders did. But she was blasted for this by some of the other Democrats on the debate stage. Here it is.
Well, we heard it tonight, a yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything. I don't understand why you believe the only way to deliver affordable coverage to everybody is to obliterate private plans, kicking 150 million Americans off of their insurance in 4 short years when we could achieve that same big, bold goal. And once again, we got to be president. We're competing to be president for the day after Trump.
At least Bernie's being honest here and saying how he's going to pay for this and that taxes are going to go up. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but you have not said that. And I think we owe it to the American people to tell them where we're going to send the invoice.
So, I mean, she's exactly right. And they're going to send it to you, the middle-class taxpayer. I mean, that's obvious. More on what the response was from the Democrats in a moment, because, in a way, what Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Beto O'Rourke want is almost worse than the Medicare for all. I mean, it's not, but it is, and I'll tell you why in a second. But you know who was actually right about Warren's plan and Bernie's plan? Who was actually almost a voice of reason on this? Joe Biden, believe it or not. After the debate, he totally called them out on this, and he was right. Here it is.
I don't want to pick on Elizabeth Warren, but this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The idea that someone is going to be able to go out and spend what's going to come out to about $3.4 trillion a year. But Bernie doesn't play for half his plan. The last thing the Democrats should be doing is playing Trump's game and trying to con the American people to think this is easy. There's nothing easy about it.
I mean, he's right. But here's what Biden doesn't understand, or he does. Everyone is trying to make this about numbers. How are you going to pay for this? And I get that to a point, because regular people might ask this. But you have to understand what Bernie Sanders, I don't know about Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren's a fraud. From everything, it seems like she's a total fraud. I don't know if she actually believes in any of this stuff. She just has these plans, sounds smart, but she lies all the time. It seems she's been caught in like 5 different lies now, lies all the time on this stuff. So she's a fraud. But Bernie Sanders, you can't get into a numbers game with him. It won't work for Bernie Sanders, and it won't work for his followers. You know why? Because with Bernie Sanders, it's not about the numbers. It's about completely restructuring our economy. He wants to fundamentally, Obama said that, but Bernie Sanders really wants to fundamentally transform America. He wants to fundamentally transform the economy. So to him, it's like, well, the numbers really don't matter. It's not like we're just going to have a new government program and we're going to pay for it through higher debt. To him, it's a total transformation on how our economy works. Over and over again in the debate, Bernie Sanders was yelling at capitalism. He said the opioid crisis was a response of unfettered capitalism because the drug companies are evil. That was a new thing in the debate. The drug companies are evil. They should go to jail. Yeah, they did some bad things, but they've also done a lot of good things for a lot of people. And if the government takes control of that industry, most of that will go away. But you get into one of these numbers games. Well, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to do this? And Biden says, this is ridiculous. It's really not in the minds of Bernie Sanders and his followers, because to them, it's about completely restructuring how it all works. Biden, just wants to implement another government policy so he can get more votes. But Bernie wants to restructure. Now, I want to go back to what I was saying originally. Buttigieg there and Beto O'Rourke and Amy Klobuchar, what they're promoting. Mm-hmm. I think Klobuchar is just promoting of an expansion of Obamacare, but Buttigieg and Beto have this sort of, Pete calls it Medicare for all who want it. And the way it would work with him is you can keep your private plan if you want to, but if you want to, you can buy in to the government Medicare plan.
Mm-hmm.
And he says
there's a problem right there.
What's the problem?
Because if not enough people buy in, how are they going to make it work?
Well, that's what happened with Obamacare.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, you can't. That's why it doesn't work. That's why the likes of Bernie Sanders just want to totally uproot the whole system and redo it because they think it can't work. But in a way, I think, I think what Pete and Biden and Klobuchar are doing is worse, is because now all of a sudden, what Pete wants to do is a pretty radical thing. To have a Medicare for all plan that anyone can buy into, a government health care plan that anyone can get into, that's still pretty radical. But they're coming off as moderate because Warren and Sanders are so radical that Pete Buttigieg is now the moderate and Biden's now the moderate. And in a way, it's almost dangerous because we've convinced ourselves that that's true, that they're moderates. In the big scheme of things, they're not. They're still extremely radical. What Pete Buttigieg wants to do is a very radical thing that's still going to cost a lot of money. Not only that, but what Pete has said, and Beto has said, and Klobuchar and others have said, is their goal is what Bernie Sanders wants now is their goal in the long run. Pete Buttigieg's goal in the long run, he has admitted, is a Medicare for all type plan that Bernie Sanders wants. He just doesn't believe we can get there in one step. He wants to do this incrementalism where we get there over time. And in a way, that's almost worse because that's how we got to where we are now. So that it's like it's just the train's moving slower toward this, but it's still a bad destination. But we're not going to notice it as much because it's going to take a while until eventually one day down the road, we're going to be stuck in a Medicare for all plan. And we're going to say, how the hell did we get here? And we're not going to be able to get out of it. So in a way, it's almost worse because we didn't realize that we were getting there. Well, at least at Bernie Sanders, we would know it's a disaster immediately. And maybe we'll be able to get out of it faster. But it's a big problem there. And what they're doing is gonna be worse. All right, so one more segment to go, I think, Tom Benson, right?
Yay!
Unless you want to go for another hour. Yeah? I didn't think so. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Beyond Reason? Yaffee is now on YouTube. Go to YouTube now and just search Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. Just on a side note, there's this whole issue going on with Tulsi Gabbard right now, who Tom Benson is now the biggest Tulsi Gabbard fan I think I've seen. Well, maybe behind Bud. Bud's like the biggest Tulsi Gabbard
Oh, really?
Fan. He's loved her for a while now. Wow. Loves Tulsi Gabbard.
I like her. The more she badmouths Hillary, I like her more.
Yeah, she's totally calling her out, saying that all of these attacks against her are Hillary's proxies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's very interesting. I don't know if I buy all that, but okay. But the thing I wanted to bring up is what's up with the white suit? Has anyone else noticed that, like, all of a sudden, she had that one really good debate where she wore that all-white suit and she took on Kamala Harris.
It's probably her lucky suit. You know,
I guess it because before that, I don't remember her wearing it all the time. Like, I don't remember ever seeing her in this all-white suit. And after that debate, every single time I see her, she's wearing an all-white suit.
Everybody has favorite clothing where they feel comfortable, they feel confident, and that's probably hers.
But it's weird.
Well,
is anyone else weirded out by it?
She probably has a closet full of 20 of the suits, all exactly the same.
It's like when you watch a cartoon and they all the cartoon characters wear the same thing every day, and then the closet's same.
But here's the logical why she has the one suit: easy traveling, light pack. You don't have to pack a lot of clothes.
Oh, okay. I mean, if that's what you. And she doesn't have to go to Hawaii and back, so that's a long trip.
I have a daughter. She'll go away for a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. She'll take 6 pieces of luggage with her. What do you need 6 pieces of luggage for a weekend getaway?
I mean, we can just wear the same suit every day.
Exactly.
Honey. Like, see Tulsi Gabbard.
When you're in your hotel room, send it out to get cleaned. When it comes in the morning, it's dry clean and ready to go.
Oh, that's so funny. It's just something I noticed. Like, she's always wearing the same white suit now. Like, ever since that debate, it's like every picture I see, every video I see, every interview, she's wearing the same thing. I'm like, this is weird. Like, have you taken it off? Is it literally you've been wearing it this whole time?
Let's backtrack here a second. There is some good Clinton news this week. Did you hear it?
No, I did not.
Chelsea says she is not going to run for Congress.
Because she would get destroyed.
She's being urged to do so by Democrats in New York. You're absolutely right, but at least she's smart enough not to do it.
I mean, because she did that whole thing on MSNBC for a while, and she was awful. Like, she couldn't even keep that job. And it was basically handed to her on a silver platter. I mean, she's just not very good. I'm just saying. So I wanted to get into something real quick here. Mark Zuckerberg, founder, CEO of Facebook, I actually have a little bit of more respect for him now. I mean, I don't know the guy, and a lot of people don't like him because it seems like Facebook is censoring conservatives, and maybe that's true. But, Elizabeth Warren came out, and the Democrats are coming out. They want to regulate Facebook. They want to regulate speech. They want to go after and break up the companies. And Zuckerberg's like, no, we're not going to let you do that. I'm going to fight back. And he gave a speech recently on this, and I thought he made some good points. Here's what he said.
So giving people a voice and broader inclusion go hand in hand. And the trend has certainly been towards us getting much greater voice over time. But there's also an important counter trend, which is that in times of social tension, our impulse is often to pull back on free expression. Because we want the progress that comes from free expression, but we don't want the tension. We saw this when Martin Luther King Jr. wrote his famous letter from a Birmingham jail where he was unconstitutionally jailed for protesting peacefully. We saw this in the effort to shut down campus protests during the Vietnam War. We saw this way back when America was deeply polarized about its role in World War I, and the Supreme Court ruled at the time that the socialist leader Eugene Debs could be imprisoned for making an anti-war speech. In the end, all of these decisions were wrong. Pulling back on free expression wasn't the answer, and in fact, it often ends up hurting the minority views that we seek to protect. Now, from where we are today, it seems obvious that, of course, protests for civil rights or making a speech against a war should be allowed, yet this desire to suppress this expression was felt deeply by a lot of society at the time. And today, we are in another moment of social tension. We face real issues that are going to take a long time to work through. Massive economic transitions from globalization and technology. Fallout that remains from the 2008 financial crisis. Very polarized reactions to social issues and greater migration, not just here, but across the EU and around the world. And many of our issues flow downstream from these changes. And in the face of these tensions, once again, a popular impulse is to pull back on free expression. We're at another crossroads. We can either continue to stand for free expression, understanding its messiness, but believing that the long journey towards greater progress requires confronting ideas that challenge us. Or we can decide that the cost is simply too great. And I'm here today because I believe that we must continue to stand for free expression.
I think he's right. For the most part, I think he's exactly right. Now, when it comes to Zuckerberg and Facebook, the proof will have to be in the pudding. We'll see what actually happens if he continues to censor conservatives or political speech or whatever. But, you know, I like the fact that this big CEO is really he's not backing down. It would be easy for him to just agree because he's liberal. He's on that side of the political aisle, from what I understand. It could be easy for him to back down against Elizabeth Warren likes and want to censor speech and totally toe the line on that. But he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not why I created Facebook.
And heaven knows he's made enough money. How much more money can he make?
Yeah.
So why not just throw in the towel and say, well, okay, go ahead, do your thing. Yeah.
You know, and he has called for some government regulation here, but he's like, look, I don't want to limit speech. And he even later in the speech says, they're doing that across the world. And he's exactly right. And I think it's a good thing that someone as powerful as him, who owns a platform as powerful as he does, is saying, look, I am not here to start censoring speech. And I have some newfound respect for him, honestly. Now, the problem that Facebook has is when Facebook was originally made, it was meant to be sort of a bulletin board online. It was an online bulletin board where you had your profile and your stuff and you posted it and it was just there and anyone could look at it and you could say anything you want. Facebook wasn't responsible for that. But they could no longer keep that model because they have to make money off of it. And there was no way to make money off just that alone. So the only way they can make money is sell advertisements, but also sell reach. So in order for them to get you to pay money into it and to get your post to reach more people, they have to have algorithms in place that control kind of what you see on your wall.
And who also gets to see what you post.
Who sees it and where it goes and all of that stuff. And the problem with that is when you start going down that road, you become more of a publisher than just a forum, a bulletin board forum. And it's a really hard line to walk because he wants to keep the essence of Facebook free and free speech in that public forum thing where it's not regulated. But they also have to make money off of it some way. And it's hard to do that without having algorithms that control what you see, when you see it, where you see it and stuff like that. So walking that line is very difficult, but it's comforting to me to at least be to see him say, look, I'm going to do my best to promote free speech. I'm going to do my best to continue to have this. And a lot of people that complain about Zuckerberg and complain about Facebook, I mean, they use it all the time. I mean, a lot of I'm watching some of the comments on the video where I got that audio, and they're all, I hate Zuckerberg, blah, blah. But they're on YouTube chat, which is similar to Facebook chat. Like, it's all the same stuff. They use the technology all the time as much as they complain about it. So I just thought that was an interesting thing. But we'll see where this goes. I guess maybe I just like that he's kind of fighting back against all of this. Well, we have a minute left, and I'm totally out of things to say, Tom Benson. I'm done. That's
my
it.
Goodness.
It's over.
Oh, man.
I can't do anymore. It's just beyond reason. Should we just talk about the Yankees? Should we just talk about...
Yeah, they're in the fourth inning now. Yankees are ahead 4-1. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. I hosted the morning show today. I hosted PM Orlando. I hosted this show for 2 hours. I'm actually hosting the morning show again on Monday. So, and then after that, I am taking a week off at the end of October.
Yeah, yes. last week in October?
Yes.
Okay.
So I know you're going to miss me,
yes,
Tom Benson.
Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate you listening to the show. If you miss any of the show, you get to the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. Thanks, Tom Benson, for ruining your night by staying with me through the night. I appreciate it. You can follow.
What's your name?
You can follow me on Twitter at PMOWFLA. It's at PMOWFLA. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. And, I'm gonna go home and go to bed. I'll catch you guys next time.